We all know that the tourism sector is facing its biggest challenge ever. One way for us to understand where we are is to take a historical perspective. In 2003, when the world was affected by the SARS pandemic, it resulted in a reduction of international tourist arrivals by 0.4%. In 2009, when the global economic crisis happened, that resulted in a reduction of 4%. But today, we are looking at a contraction of the international tourist arrivals by anywhere between 60 to 80%. The state of the overall economy is also not very promising. The IMF has declared a couple of days ago that the global economy is expected to contract by 4.9%, and they have upwardly revised it from 3%, which was the estimate earlier. And the bounce back for the year 2021 is also expected to be 5.4%, which is lower than the 5.8%, which was estimated earlier. So what this means is that the economic situation is not very strong. On the pandemic front, we also heard the Director General of the World Health Organization 2 days ago, who said that it took 3 months for the first 1 million infections to happen on account of coronavirus. But it only took 8 days for the second million to happen. So essentially, we are looking at a situation which is very difficult to cope with. But the bad news is also tempered with good news. We know that the countries which had the first wave of infections have now opened up their economies. Italy is a case, Spain is a case in point. Almost all the activities are coming back on track, of course, with social distancing norms. And even though there is a marginal increase in the number of cases, the situation continues to be well in control. So that gives us the hope that if should this trend continue, we will be able to cope with the situation even without a vaccine, and that the economies will be able to come back on track. And tourism sector, as one of the most affected sectors, will also have to fight its way back. And I think it calls for extreme resilience, not just from the industry, but also from the government to put this back. Clearly, this is a situation that no business contingency plan would have covered for. And this is also too steep a drop for the governments to step in and support the industry. So I think we're at a position where we need to see as to how the crawl back to prosperity happens from here. We all know that in the process of recovery, domestic markets are the ones which are going to lead first, followed by regional and then international. And that is largely because the way the world will open up for travel will be staggered. There are several discussions now about green corridors and bubbles that are happening that might still work for India, but I think it is still too early for us to figure out the exact contours of that. Domestic market for India is very strong. And one figure that we always need to keep in mind is even though we receive 11 million tourists from abroad, we send out close to 25 million tourists every year. And it is this purchasing power and it is this core market that is within us that will help domestic tourism to revive faster. One of the things that we also need to keep in mind is that the contours or the nature of domestic tourism is also going to change significantly. Travel may not happen to iconic destinations as it was in the past. You might want to travel to the Taj Mahal if you are from the southern part of the country, but it may not be possible because there will be health advisories, there will be quarantine restrictions. So several of these things will come into play. So I think in the immediate future, the kind of travel that we will be seeing will be day trips, it could be car trips, and then slowly the hotel stays will come in. One of the things that for the states is that they get an opportunity to develop new destinations which are close by so as to cater to this demand by building infrastructure. But most important role that the states need to do now is to ensure that destinations have the hygiene and safety protocols, and we need to see these across all touch points. It has to be hotels, it has to be restaurants, it has to be the public washrooms at monuments or wherever people go to. So these are all things that we need to keep them in place. Second, we also need to make sure that it is not just the protocols which are declared, but we must be seen to be effectively implementing them to restore that consumer confidence. For the hotels, they need to look at what the social, how the capacity will get affected by the social distancing norms. And they will need to develop a game plan so as to not to compromise upon the health and safety. And it is also important to ensure that hotels have proper protocols which will support consumer confidence. As somebody told me the other day, it is not just enough to kill the virus, it is also necessary to kill the anxiety in the traveler. And for tour operators, I think this calls us for a complete reorientation of their plans to see as to how they will, in the short term, operate the domestic market to stand up. That is not to say that we will not have an international market coming up. International will open up, and that is something that India should be keenly looking forward to tap. But till the time that international opens up, I think domestic is something that will keep our head above the water, and that is how we need to look at it. And secondly, for the tour operators, we also need to look at the possibilities of risk profiling so that we cater for any additional health requirement for travelers based upon their risk profile. And of course, for all the tourism players, we need to make sure that we have a backup plan. What if we have tourists and they get infected while they are there? What is the plan that we have to support them? And I think that is going to be very critical for us to ensure that consumer confidence comes back in quicker. The future, as we all know, is not going to be the same as it was before COVID. Once the pandemic is over and even when business comes back, I think there will be a very strong trend towards meaningful and responsible experiences. We will be looking at several new concepts like valuing environmental costs beyond the economic cost. We will look at destinations which will try to move towards a zero carbon footprint. We will look at tourism experiences which have the community as the centerpiece. And therefore, I think it also gives us an opportunity for us to set the reset button and see as to how we can rework our entire business game plan towards the new reality that will shape up. And I think together we can all collaborate. And now more than ever, we need to be more resolute, more resilient to make sure that we come out of this stronger and that we have a tourism sector that is more vibrant, that is more stronger, that is more sustainable, and that supports its people more than ever before. I wish the deliberations all success. Thank you.